I also think it's interesting that you said you lean towards more the carrot motivation, because this is my first reaction was this is so Britannia. Because if a boss is like, if you don't do this, you lose your job, I can see you being like, okay, whatever. Like, I know my worth. Someone else will hire me.
Yeah.
Like, this job is expendable. I'm not. Like,
Mhm.
and I could see that. And so I think that also having the carrot motivation to form that, because someone who's more fear-based like me, who is worried about the consequences, like we said, is external, it's temporary, but maybe it's because I need to work on something internal, like my worth, my the part of me that makes me confident and stand sure that it's going to be okay. Like you said, you got to trust yourself. And that's super important. And so if you're feeling like you can't trust yourself, or you're feeling like you're not good enough, you're feeling like you are expendable, not as worthy as other people, then you probably will lean towards the stick based motivation, which is it's going to run out. It will run out. And you're probably not going to be happy continually being motivated by that type. So it's super important to go inwardly, to ask yourselves those questions and figure out what is that deep, deep motivation that comes from within.
Welcome to the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast, where you master your mind and coach your own comeback. You are the hero, you are the guide, and you will learn to architect your life from the inside. I'm your host, Britannia Stowe, joined by my sister and co host, Annika Wilder. Enjoy the show.
So I have a question for the audience, because Britannia just asked me this and I have no idea what she was talking about. She said, "Are you a stick or a carrot?" And I'm thinking they're both stick like. I like could not understand I had no idea what she was talking about. So Britannia, because I know I'm not alone, please tell me I'm not alone, by the way. Please explain what you mean when you say, are you a stick or a carrot?
Yeah, I was so surprised when you didn't know what this was. I assumed everyone knows, the carrot or the stick uh analogy. So, yes, they are both stick like, but the idea is behind what incentivizes you. So, today we're talking about fear-based motivation or love-based motivation. And the stick and the carrot shows, do you want to be beaten? So you are motivated. So you move forward. You're afraid of consequences. So that's why you're motivated. That's why you do what you're supposed to. Or are you a carrot person, which means you do better with incentives, awards ahead of time? So usually one is chasing a reward that is in front of them. So if you imagine a dog or another animal, you dangle a carrot in front of them that will motivate them to move forward. Actually, I think it originally originated with horses. So you dangle a carrot in front of a horse, and then the horse will move forward because they want to capture the carrot. But there are other animals and people who are not motivated by incentives and rewards. They are motivated on a more fear based. And so that's the stick. And the only way to get the horse or the person to move is to either physically beat them with a stick or metaphorically beat them with a stick. So when I asked you, I said, are you a carrot or a stick person? Now that you know what that is, I'm curious. Are you someone who you are running forward towards something, an incentive, an award, you're excited, it's more love based, or are you afraid of what is coming up behind you, and so that's why you're motivated? Maybe that is homelessness or not having food on your table. What kind of person would you say you are?
I think it's a good question. I'm never afraid of being homeless. I don't think that's in the cards for me. But we grew up with a German grandmother that spanked us with wooden spoons. And, we got buck fifas, and we got, there was some physical discipline in our household. And so I think growing up that way, it's very natural to be, afraid of the stick, afraid of the consequences, afraid of what would come if you didn't do something. So, but I can see myself being both, because, and I can share a couple stories too, where, going into real estate, going from W-2 to commission, I had no safety net. I mean, my boss did guarantee my salary, so that did help, but that went away after 3 months and I had no sales experience. And so I had to succeed or my family didn't eat. So that's kind of like the stick, right? There would be severe consequences if I didn't succeed with getting commissions into my household right away. But at the same time, I also am very motivated. Like, we recently had a competition on my real estate team where if you pass these certain markers, like you closed a certain amount of deals or you signed enough contracts, you got a $500 gift card to wherever you wanted. And I did that because I was incentivized by $500 and I got a gift card for Delta. So I could fly anywhere for $500. That was a big enough reward that it motivated me to do this competition. So for me personally, I'm both. I'm curious to know what you are and if people lean towards one way or the other, if it's normal to be both, depending on the situation.
Yeah, I would love to hear from our listeners, so please share with us if you are a stick or a carrot person, or if you had even heard about the metaphor of being a stick or a carrot person. Like you, Annika, my environment and the way we were brought up affected me a lot. I am naturally a carrot person. I actually don't do well with the stick. And I think that's why I had a hard time when I was younger being disciplined, because whether it was grandparents or parents, when you are being told you do this because I tell you you have to, and if you don't, you will get spanked. That's very fear based. And so that affected me in a lot of ways. And I had a lot of fear. But as I've gotten older and have been able to really strip myself of these ideologies and these beliefs that no longer serve me, I realize I don't do well with that. If a manager tells me you will lose your job if you don't hit quota, if you don't hit X amount of calls or X amount of sales, then you will lose your job. That doesn't work. I don't thrive in that environment. When someone tells me, Britannia, you're doing a great job, you landed a sale today. Great job. I bet you can land 2 tomorrow. Hey, if you land 5 this week, maybe we go out to lunch and celebrate. It's lunch. It's like $20, right? It's not even that much. But I do so much better with a love-based and a positive-based motivation than a fear-based. So to break that down a little further, I would like to there are some pros and cons. And I don't want anyone to be like, oh, I'm a stick-based person. Is there something wrong with me? No, no, no. We all operate differently. I do think that there is more pros to being love based and being a carrot person, but that doesn't mean that having consequences or having the stick influence you is a bad thing. So I'd like to break down what it means to be a stick person. And that is a scarcity mindset, often pressure based, sometimes not enoughness. That can go pretty deep as well. The common narratives are, if I don't do this, I'll let everyone down. If I don't show up at work, I could lose my job and my children won't have food. If I don't win, I can't feed my family. So these are some common narratives: hustling to prove your worth, to avoid laziness, being fearful of ever being perceived as lazy, wanting to make sure you stay ahead and not fall behind. And there are pros to this. The pros to the stick. I mean, what do you think, Annika, are some pros to having some fear-based motivation behind you?
Yeah, because like I said, I had this. If I didn't succeed in sales, I wouldn't eat. And so I actually had like a burst of energy or power. Like, it was very powerful motivation to grind in the beginning a lot. Like I didn't get tired of putting in the work because I was so motivated in that short term, right? And that's super, super important. But the pro was it did get me up in the morning. It did fuel me to have success. And I did. I had success very quickly, and I continue to have success because of that short-term power and motivation that came from that fear-based or that stick-based mentality. So it worked for me, but it came at a cost too.
Yeah. So there are some cons, right? So those are some of the pros. Some cons can be burnout and anxiety. you do have this burst of energy. I always think of, when you're playing Mario Kart and you get, the little turbo and you can hit it really fast for a few seconds. And maybe you're able to get ahead of your competitors and maybe move from one position to another. But you can also lose sight of where you're going. You can slip on a banana peel, right? You can lose track. And then before you know it, you are behind. You've hit a wall, you've crashed. So burnout, anxiety, and then if the fear fades, so if you are so used to a fear-based or a stick-based motivation, and all of a sudden the stick goes away, you are making enough money. You are no longer concerned that you might lose your job. Maybe you've made tons of sales. You've sold tons of homes. I mean, Annika, I bet you could really relate because you were, trying to prove yourself and in the beginning hustling really hard. And then all of a sudden you're making money and things are good. Tell me, how did you feel in that moment? Was it, oh, yeah, I feel great? Or was there even more anxiety because you didn't know how to operate in that space?
Right, exactly. I didn't know how to operate in that space. I had 1 month where I made $20,000 in 1 month in February in a market where interest rates have been very high and home prices are really high, and I made $20,000. And I was like, this is really cool, but if I stop now, the money goes away, like it'll get spent. And so what's interesting about this theory is that the stick, what I'm hearing kind of sounds like external forces instead of an internal drive. And the external force, once it's gone, like for me, it was if I don't succeed, I don't eat. Well, now I've succeeded and now I've eaten. Now I've got money in the bank. What's my drive now? Then it kind of has this mix of burnout, anxiety, but then confusion and loss, because now it's like, well, now what do I do? I got out of survival mode. I had all this power. Now I'm exhausted. And what drives me now? And so I think it's okay to have that external force. But if we rely on it for our only motivation, then you're going to lose motivation along the way. So it's super important to have that internal motivation to keep you going. And maybe you figure it out along the way. Maybe you don't know what the internal motivation is in the beginning. Maybe it is just survival mode. Maybe it is the fear of the consequences, like the stick method talks about. But if that runs out, then what? Do you just stop? Do you like what happens? So how do you find that internal motivation is something worth exploring within yourself.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the carrot. So let's talk about the carrot, because the carrot is exactly that. It is internal. It is driven by your values, your purpose, self-respect. It is fueled by internal alignment, not that external validation or external fear of something chasing behind you. Common narratives are, I'm doing this because I love it. This matters to me. I feel joy and fulfillment from whatever it is I'm doing. I would say this podcast is definitely a very carrot based exercise. We do it because we love it, not because anyone has tasked us to do it or we have a deadline we have to meet. It is a labor of love. And so you can actually take a stick motivation and transfer into a carrot motivation. But there are some pros and cons to the carrot. And so let's go into that a little bit. What do you think are some of the pros of a carrot motivation or a love-based motivation?
Well, I would think it's more steady, it's more reliable. It's not going to run out on you because it's internal. It's a part of you. It's not external. And it's probably more sustainable and more meaningful. Like it gives you more fulfillment than something that's so temporary.
Yes, well, exactly. It runs deep. And because you're not getting those external validation or forces, you don't have to wait for the fuel to burn out, right? You can actually self-maintain. So there are cons though, and it's important to point those out. One of the cons is that it is slower. It can feel dragged out. You don't have the same fuel or boost of energy that you're getting from the stick. We talk about the purpose of fear. Fear has a purpose. It's not inherently bad. And if you're used to, having that push and that energy and that spark, when you do transfer into a love-based or a carrot-based motivation, it might feel slower, subdued, even though it is more steady. So it doesn't always come quickly, and it requires a lot of self-trust. And it's normal to doubt yourself along the way. And so having to create space where you're allowed to come back to yourself and realign your vision and check back in with your purpose. Maybe you're doing your ikigai, right? Allowing some space for that can be difficult when you're used to being so reactive. So those are just some of the cons that you'll experience in the carrot or the love-based motivation.
I also think it's interesting that you said you lean towards more the carrot motivation, because this is my first reaction was, this is so Britannia, because if a boss is like, if you don't do this, you lose your job. I can see you being like, okay, whatever. Like, I know my worth. Someone else will hire me. Like, this job is expendable. I'm not like,
Mhm.
and I could see that. And so I think that also having the carrot motivation to form that, because someone who's more fear-based like me, who is worried about the consequences, like we said, is external, it's temporary, but maybe it's because I need to work on something internal, like my worth, the part of me that makes me confident and stand sure that it's going to be okay. Like you said, you got to trust yourself. And that's super important. And so if you're feeling like you can't trust yourself, or you're feeling like you're not good enough, you're feeling like you are expendable, not as worthy as other people, then you probably will lean towards the stick-based motivation, which is, it's going to run out. It will run out. And you're probably not going to be happy continually being motivated by that type. So it's super important to go inwardly, to ask yourselves those questions and figure out what is that deep, deep motivation that comes from within. So how do we coach people through this, Britannia? How do we do that?
Yeah, it all comes back to recognizing those patterns. So in our Coach Yourself segment, that's what I want to focus on right now, is recognizing those patterns. Are you more carrot based? Are you more stick based? Just explaining a little bit of what the two are. Maybe maybe it's very easy for you, but maybe you're a little conflicted because your childhood was more stick based, but you are naturally more carrot based, and you have not stripped yourself of some of those behavioral patterns and been able to be authentically yourself. So ask yourself, what drives me? Is it fear? Is it love? Am I doing this for outside validation? Like, when I do accomplish something, do I need to be quickly praised for it or acknowledged? Do I need to prove I'm enough? Do I need the accolades from everybody else? Or do I feel energized and connected to a greater purpose? Can I work on something without anyone else knowing about it and still feel completely fulfilled? I mean, these are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself. And I think it's always fun to do a visualization exercise. That's one of the things that have helped me a lot, is visualizations. And so I encourage you to imagine yourself walking down a path and you feel the urge to run. Maybe it's a sunny day, maybe it's a sidewalk, maybe it's a dirt road, but you're walking down this path and all of a sudden you have this burst of energy to run. Now, are you running towards something? Is there something bright and happy in front of you? Or are you running away from something? Is there something dark chasing you? When I cue you to run, when you feel this feeling, do you feel hopeful and big and light? And is your heart warm? Or do you feel scared and you want to shrink yourself? Wherever you naturally go, when you start to visualize that urge to run, you're then able to deduce, oh, I am more fear-based or I am more love-based.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. I could visualize it. And I still feel like I'm both. Like I can see it, something chasing me in the back, and I can also see the light in the front. And my moon sign's a Libra, so I tend to be very balanced with like yin and yang. Like, we all have a little dark and light in us. We all have fear. And So I definitely, I don't know. This is tough. I feel like I'm right in the middle. So, but what if you're kind of stuck in the fear-based cycle? How do you get out of that?
Yeah, we talk about the value of the fear based, but what if you're only fear based and you want to be a little bit more carrot based? What we could start doing is once you acknowledge some patterns, you can ask yourself, well, what does love based motivation look like? If you talk about the 5 love languages, some people it's, getting presents or getting a hug, or it's being told you're doing a great job. What would motivate you if you were a love based person? This is one of my favorite things to do. When you don't think you're the person that you want to be, say you want to be funny, you want to be courageous, imagine, what does funny Britannia look like? What does courageous Britannia look like? So, what does a love based or a carrot based motivation Britannia look like? And allow yourself to sit with that, write it down, journal it. Identify just one area you want to implement a little bit more of the carrot, a little bit more of the reward, a little bit more love. Is it in exercise? Is it being a parent? Is it in your finances or your career or business? Just identify one small area that you want to start showing up as a more love motivated or carrot motivated person, and then start. What's one of the rewards? So Annika, if you wanted to be more love based, more carrot based in one area, you can choose the area. What is one thing that you could reward yourself with to help encourage that?
I do little things like this. And that's why I said, I'm like, I think of both. Like if I really don't like making cold calls. It's just not my thing. But when you're in any kind of sales, and that includes real estate, you're going to have to make some kind of calls. Usually they're going to be warm or hot leads, but we get some cold calling in too. And so it takes me forever to get started, and I just have to give myself a pep talk, like just start, just pick up the phone and just make one call and then make another. And once I get in the zone, then I'm good. And when I tell myself is if you just make 10 cold calls, you can have a bowl of ice cream. And it's just like something really, really small. Or you can scroll on social media for 10 minutes, or you can go buy a new shirt at Kohl's because it's right down the street from my office. So I will reward myself for doing the things that I don't want to do.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. And it's so easy and so small. Annika loves ice cream and shopping. What do you love? What is something that maybe you don't allow yourself to have? Let yourself have it. Give yourself that reward. Write it down on a post-it. It could be if you don't yell at your kids, if you put, $500 aside this month, whatever it might be that you're trying to be more reward based, you can do that and you can start today. I know that carrot or stick based, we're all dynamic people. Like Annika said, we all have a little bit of light, we all have a little bit of dark, but it's about the wolf that you choose to feed. And so, one of the ways that you can feed more into the love based or the carrot based motivation is affirmations. And so, one of my favorite affirmations that I like to say is, I don't need to prove my worth. My worth is innate. And I will repeat that over and over and over again. I don't need to prove my worth. My worth is innate. And another affirmation that I'd love to close with is, when I am aligned with my purpose, I am naturally moving forward. Remember, fear can get you going, but it's love that keeps you growing. This has been another episode of the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, subscribe and share the love. And remember the teachings of Lao Tzu. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Until next time, trust yourself. Take the wisdom, take the breath, and take the next step.